Hi guys, I have been trying to set up this phone camera lighting situation for longer than I should have, and it still feels weird to look at myself in the camera while I talk. So you might see me looking around the room. That's because it's weird to stare directly at myself for a really long time. But all of that time does not fare in comparison to how long I scrolled on my Instagram today. I saw a woman make hummus using her feet. I saw a furry jump really high. I also saw mm, a bunch of other things. They're really interesting, but I think we should get started with what this video is about. I can make another video on what fun stuff I see online every day. So, first of all, I've made a few YouTube videos here and there, but I've never sat down and made a real YouTube video where you're sitting. I guess you could do it while standing, but where you talk to the camera and discuss things. So, yay. I have a lot of YouTube video ideas, and for some reason I just couldn't get started. And I decided to get started with the one I'm making today because just yesterday morning I finished reading this book, and before that I had just finished reading this book, and they were so interesting. They hit me, so I wanted to talk about them. And since I've just finished this book yesterday, it's still fresh, the juices are flowing, so it's a good time to talk about this. So these two books are by the same person, Sayaka Murata, and I haven't looked a lot into her personal history because I wanted to discuss these books as standalone pieces and not like stalk into what the author is up to, what their life is, all of that, but just look at what she's written and decided to show in these books. Now, this is not a review because the way I'm talking about these books, it's not about, oh, it's a good book, you should read it. No, it's not a good book, you shouldn't read it. But more about discussing its ideas and more. And these books aren't really like thrillers or based on plot per se, but they're more about the idea they're expressing, which some of you might be like, every book is about that, which no, it isn't. I read a lot of bad books. So let me start by talking about these books. I'll start with how these books compare to each other. Now, both of these are by the same author. I first read Earthlings, then I read Convenience Store Women, which this one is really popular. I think it says here that it has been translated into a lot of languages, and it sold over 650,000 copies in Japan. And yeah, I would say after reading Earthlings and Convenience Store Woman, Earthlings, I would say they're so similar. Both of the protagonists have kind of similar vibes, and I'll expound on how they're different. Obviously, by the thickness and size of these books, you can see one of them is bigger and the other is smaller. And this one, it goes more in depth with what I think this one tries to do. This one is more fleshed out in terms of emotions, in terms of its number of characters, all that. So, beginning with these books. This book is called Convenience Store Woman. I'll give a little bit of a plot of both of them so you can understand what I'm talking about. This book is about a woman who's about 36 or so, and ever since she graduated college, she has been working at a convenience store. And since she's young, she has been a bit different. Like, if someone would say stop a fight, then she would stop a fight by beating someone up with a stick, or she would take things very directly. And what happens is after college, she starts working at a convenience store, and she just fits in, and she starts working there, and she continues working there for a really, really long time, about 16 or 18 years. And people find it very strange that she hasn't progressed to a better job, why she hasn't married. And throughout this, she talks a lot about how she doesn't understand these things. Like, of course, as a reader, you see that she doesn't understand, but it's about, from her perspective, she finds it strange that people are always telling her to get married, and she has to come up with stories about why she doesn't want to get married, why she wants to work at the convenience store. And even from a young age, her parents, her sister, her therapist, all of them are different from her. They all subscribe to this idea of get married, have children, you shouldn't be a convenience store woman. So they have this mindset. I'll refer to this type of thinking, societal thinking, is the mindset from now on in this video. And later on in this book, what happens is she finds this guy. So she is a very good convenience store worker. She doesn't like gossiping. She doesn't like mucking around. She is very thorough with her job. And what happens is, like with any job, corporate jobs, jobs in college, jobs at a convenience store, even doctors, or any profession, you can be cynical and boil it down to something like, this job is stupid, but I'm doing it for the money. Why do I have to do this for this job and this, that? But she does not do that. She really values her work, not in the sense that I'm making the convenience store a better place and this is my contribution to the world. But whatever her job is, she does it. Like, she'll go to the convenience store an hour before she has to start working and eat her breakfast so that she can have energy to work there. And she'll always have her eyes out for when there's a customer nearby so that she can check out their stuff for them, and when to stop things, all of that. And what happens is this new guy starts working there who is like around her age, a year younger than her, and he's like this outcast who is a pretty shit person. He keeps talking about how society hasn't progressed since it was in the Stone Age, and men are expected to work and produce and get money, and this convenience store job is so stupid. And he's also creepy and like asks for his coworkers, his female coworkers' phone numbers, and tries to hit on customers, follows them, all of that jazz. And somehow she ends up living with the guy, and like the guy starts living with her, and they use each other as a way to get by in society. And this guy is like a piece of shit all around throughout the novel, and he doesn't offer solace to her as like a companion who understands her and like, oh, the world's weird, it has these demands. but he's like an antithesis of her in that he also has these ideas about the world and how you have to produce things and be of use, but he be does not offer companionship in the same way as she, in the way she thinks. And he tries to set her up with a new job, makes her quit the convenience store job. Everyone's happy, her family's happy that she's living with a guy, and she decides to not do that other job, not give the interview, and decides to work back in the convenience store because that's what gives value to her life. And one interesting thing about this book is that she talks a lot about how people absorb other people's mannerisms. She talks about how when her convenience store workers change, she absorbs their personalities and gets a style of talking that's similar to theirs. And she talks about how her sister and the other friends she meets, they all absorb each other's talking styles. But one thing about her that she does it consciously. And one interesting thing is when she stops working at the convenience store and starts living by herself with the guy, she feels lost because she's not meeting new people. So it's like, who will her personality be based on? Who will her projection be when there's nothing coming in from outside to serve as a guide for what to be? And all of that. And yeah, there's also this whole narrative about how her sister and her family wants her to be cured, and as like if she's cured, it'll be like an entrance to society. And it's also a lot about pressure and how there's this pressure to do a better job or to be married to a man, have babies. And when you read the book, you might think, this woman's like out there, whatever. She seems really strange. But you have to understand the way she talks about society is true. The way she talks about how you have to produce. Once you lose your job, that's it. Your job is giving you meaning and like things like that. They are true. People absorbing each other's personalities, mannerisms, that's all true. And the pressures she faces, they're very obvious because in her mind she's very headstrong about, okay, so I do this. I don't have the urge to procreate, so I don't want to get married or have babies or date or love. But from others' POV, it's like very different. But we all have inclinations in us that we have. Like maybe you want to do X thing, but everyone around you thinks that Y thing is the right thing to do. And they put this pressure on you to do it. And it can be inexplicable about why there's this pressure, and they might not see things from your perspective. And one thing about this book that's refreshing is that she starts off as a convenience store woman and she ends up back again as a convenience store woman, and I think she kicks out the guy out of her house and she's back to where she started. And I'm sure her family, her sister, her friends, and the other co-workers around her find her strange and they question things and all of that, just like it was in the beginning. But the difference is that she ventured out and she realized convenience store is what I want all along. And yeah, and then the pressure maybe becomes less because she knows this is the place for me. And the social mimicry in this, about how to fit in she has to act more and more like other people around her, it's very poignant. Alienation, as you can probably imagine, this book deals a lot with alienation. And now I know I'm not into ranking books, but if I had to rank, I would rank this one over Convenience Store Woman because I mentioned that book talks about alienation in different ways, and this book, Earthlings, as you can see its title, it's about alienation. This book is just phenomenal. It's hard to really explain it. You really have to feel this book. But I think whatever that book tries to do, this one does it even more and brings in a bit more emotions. So, in this book, again, we have this female protagonist and we watch her grow up. In that book, we just see her from the convenience store woman 36-year-old perspective. But here we see this young woman grow up and we get a little bit more stuff around why she is the way she is. Now, in that book, it's told to us that that's just how she was from the start. And yeah, even in this book, we have a protagonist who thinks differently, but her family is more dysfunctional. And what happens is that this protagonist in Earthlings has an elder sister and an elder mother. An elder sister and a mother, and they both hate her, but they like each other. And she has a dad who doesn't really do much, and she believes she is an alien, and she is kind of in this love thing with her cousin, which, yes, incest happens in this book, very out there. And the cousin has a mother who treats the cousin as her husband. Like, once again, we see dysfunctional family dynamics. And what happens is that both the protagonist and the cousin, the cousin's name is they find solace in each other because they both think that they're aliens, basically. And this protagonist goes through a lot of things. In this version of the book, the society is more caustic. It's more apparent from the beginning that the society is like what's wrong is more stark. So we see the protagonist's mother and sister beat her up, and we see that she has a cram school teacher who sexually assaults her, harasses her, and when she tries to explain to her mom or her sister or her friends what's going on, they don't believe her, or they try to spin the narrative around saying she enjoys it and she just doesn't understand why they don't understand things. And now it's not just a question of alien versus non-alien, but more like as readers we see what's happening and we understand more where the protagonist is coming from and why everything feels so alien to her. And in many ways it is alien to begin with, even without those other things. And she also talks about the need to procreate. She sees the world as a factory with our womb, with people's wombs and testicles as parts in the factory used to manufacture more humans, and the humans work and so on. But one big thing in this book is about companionship. So in Convenience Store Woman, she meets this other guy who has kind of a similar belief about contemporary society, but nothing much happens. She doesn't find happiness in them. But in this book, right from the beginning, there's the cousin, and she gets forbidden from seeing the cousin because of something they do. And as she becomes an adult, she's like forced to marry and stuff. So she marries this guy through a website. And this guy also shares a similar belief about the factory system and how people are subjected to do things and how value addition is an important thing and all of that. And what happens is that they The husband of this protagonist and the cousin, they start living in a house together, and one winter they go through this period of where they decide they're gonna completely cut themselves off from society. It starts off just as a vacation to escape the city and have a nice stay before they start doing their new jobs. But slowly they discuss how they see the society as this caustic place where they don't fit in, where the baby manufacturing system would want them to have keep making babies, and for the rest of their lives they'll be forced to keep up these appearances. And so they say, okay, they are aliens, and they start living by their own rules. They steal food to get by. They do a lot of other things. They have their own system of waking up, of sleeping. They lose track of dates, and they do something pretty intense. And for that, you have to read the book. And that intense scene, it's gory, but it's also happy because it breaks a lot of shackles that the narrator had faced in her life. And she is hesitant to engage in that intense thing. But after she does it, she is very happy. And in the end, they all kind of turn into these moths and fly away. It's radical, very interesting, but you have to understand it by reading it. And so, yeah, Earthlings grapples with the same things that convenience store woman grapples with, but more deeply. And it's all about running away from society. It's not all about it, but like it shows what it's like to be an outcast. Both of these books have a female protagonist, so all of that. One big thing between these two books is that Earthlings talks about love. It talks about companionship and the feeling of warmth in your chest. And so it's nice. And it also, it's like authentic companionship, not just forced. And it's interesting to see how the protagonist experiences it. And yeah, so these books are in a way a lot about honesty and how the societal structures are not really talked about and accepted by the people who engage in them. So, what happens is that in one of the big scenes, like I think in my perspective, one of the major scenes is that when she is so in one of the major scenes in this convenience store woman, the woman is talking, the main protagonist is talking to this other woman, and she asks, may I ask you something? Is having children good for humanity? What? So she's asking this because throughout her life she's been told that she should have babies, and like she sees other women have babies, and It's like kind of expected of her to do it, and it's seen as a success, as a win if she has a baby. And she explains herself, after all, we're animals, so isn't it better for our species if we multiply? Do you think it would be best for me and the man living with her to quickly get on with mating and play our part in making humanity prosper? For a while she was so quiet I thought she'd maybe hung up, but then I heard the sound of a long, heavy sigh that I could almost feel her warm breath spewing out through the receiver. Give me a break. How do you think a store worker and an unemployed good for nothing are going to be able to raise children? Please don't even consider it. You'll be doing us all a favor by not leaving your genes behind. That's the best contribution to the human race you could make. Oh, really? Keep those rotten genes to yourself for the course of your lifetime and take them to heaven with you when you die without leaving a trace of them here on earth. Seriously. I see, I said, nodding to myself, impressed at her ability to think so rationally. So then the protagonist thinks a bit, and she thinks about, oh, apparently it's better for human race if the guy and I don't mate. Since I've never had sex and the very thought of it was ghastly, I was quite relieved about this. I would carry my genes carefully to my grave, being sure not to rashly leave any behind, and I would dispose of them properly when I died. I was resolved on this, but at the same time it left me in a bit of a limbo. I understood the end point perfectly, but how was I to spend my time until then? So yeah, and on that note, I'm going to end this video. And if you have confusion understanding why I'm ending right now, it's because I've said what I wanted to say, and the gist of this book, the thoughts, they have been transmissed to you, they've been given to you, the basic ideas, and yeah, now you can run away with them. Goodbye. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Alright, alright, okay, okay. Subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'll post more videos, and if they're not related to literature, they would be more structured. But if they're related to art, they will be more vague. Goodbye.